Welcome everybody to the 11th mystery chocolate tasting. Thank you so much for joining me. I am very excited today that for the first time we're going to not just have the special guests that we always have from the foodie world, but also have the chocolatier on the call. So that means that if you have any specific really technical questions, you'll be able to ask the chocolatier as well. And that's a plan for the session's good, but I am excited to hear your feedback if you chat green, and in the chat if you can share your things that you're tasting in the chocolate. I will say that some of them are quite tricky, so it's there's no shame in like whatever you guess. Everybody has a different palate, so it's just a lot of fun. I am an international chocolate judge, but what we're doing today is judge fun to try and see if you can guess the flavors. And we're also here so that you can ask some questions to my lovely guest Olia, and if you have questions for me as well, I'm very happy to answer them. And also this time we get to ask the questions of very talented chocolatier with many years experience and awards behind him as well, Daniel Jones. So do you want to wave, Daniel? That's hard when you don't come off mute, but that's fine. We'll see you soon enough. And I'm delighted that my friend Olia Hercules is joining us as a special guest this month. So I invited Olia to come along and see what they were about quite early on, and she has joined up for every single one since with her family, and it's been so lovely to see her. So we can ask her questions about the ones that have come before. So for anyone of you who's new, and Olia, for those of you who don't know, is an incredible cook and a recipe writer. She has 3 award-winning recipe books. I have 2 of them, but I can only find one. So this is Mamushka, which is her first book.
Yeah.
Caucasus. Okay, cool. And then the 3rd one, which came out last year, is called Summer Kitchens, and she's working on a 4th. So she may be able to tell you something about that later if you'd like to know. Before we start, does anyone have any questions? Okay, so I will explain to you what the purpose of the tasting wheel and the tasting sheet is. So as I said, we're not judging the chocolate, but there are some prompts of things that we look for when we are judging chocolate. So appearance, aroma, taste, and then the melt and the finish. So what I would encourage you to do is to cut your chocolates in half. You absolutely don't have to, you can bite into them, but it is sometimes good to see what they look like, and I think sometimes it adds to the excitement, especially if you do have laid chocolates. And then the other reason for cutting them in half, not just if you're sharing them, it's probably more hygienic these days, but is because I would try and persuade you to not again later, or just later, because once they're open they will get less good, but try them potentially in a different order. And so when we are judging, even those of us who do it quite regularly, what you find is that you get better at tasting as you taste several chocolates. So if you go back to try the first chocolate after the 3rd or the 4th one, you might experience more flavor than you did the first time around. And the other reason is because what you've just tasted previously, as I'm sure you're all aware, will affect how you experience the next taste. And when we're doing these experiences, it's quite challenging to find the perfect order where, so I've done my best, but I do think some of the chocolates will benefit from trying again with a little bit of a gap, or potentially after a different chocolate. So even if you write nothing else, what's quite good is just to write a score out of 100 to see how you feel about the chocolate, and then see when you try it later if you like it more or less. I find it fascinating, and vice versa. So when we judge, we try and taste them on more than one occasion as well. So as I'm going to ask Olia her thoughts on the chocolate. You can all contribute via the chat, and Daniel will potentially get some feedback as to what was the inspiration behind the chocolate. So this is a tasting wheel which is designed for plain chocolate. So if you're not aware, plain chocolate has more than 400 different flavor compounds that's found naturally in it, which is more than wine and more than coffee. these are just some of them around the outside. So if we were judging plain chocolate, we would start at the center, see if we could figure out if there was like the spicy notes or fruity or roasted, and then move to the next layer and see if we can get more specific until finally the outer layer. This is also helpful for filled chocolates that are flavored, because some of the flavors you might find around here. So sometimes it's really hard to figure out what a flavor is. So this can be your prompt. The colors are broadly in line with the how exactly. My friend Hazel has a color map, which is amazing and useful for that. So yeah, this will hopefully help you, but I will also add to that because chocolate has so many different flavors in it, when you pair it with other ingredients, sometimes what you're tasting is actually the flavor that's coming from the chocolate rather than necessarily the added ingredients, which is why there aren't really any wrong answers in this. I mean, there's obviously correct as what went into the chocolate, but not as to what you're tasting. Okay, you must be really ready to try chocolate now. So I am going to share my screen, and that was really stupid. I wonder if I can let myself share my screen. Yeah, no, I can't do that. Okay, I'm gonna have to come back to that because I've saved it onto the computer where I'm speaking. If you've noticed, I've got two, one so I can record just me and one so I can see you all. So I'll send it over while we, but yeah, so it's the only sphere in the box, and it looks like a milk chocolate. Okay, it is milk chocolate. I will give you your first clue there. And in the meantime, I will send that document to myself. If I can. So it's a bit where it gets really quiet because I'm tasting as well. You got any comments? Yeah. Oh, it's not. It's we're not tasting the dome. It's the sphere. It's the plain milk that doesn't have any decorations.
Kind of wrinkly one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that description.
Yeah, alcohol. Right?
Yes.
And slight kind of like, is it a slight crunch?
I feel like I'm getting that as well, but I'm not sure. We'll have to ask Daniel. Normally I get all the details, but as I was a bit lazy this time because we've got Daniel on the call, I just thought he can share the details with us. But I thought the crunch was just from the tempering of the chocolate.
Yeah, no,
it might be snap. So this is a ganache. So for those of you who are not aware, a ganache is generally a mixture of cream and chocolate, but you can make ganaches from other liquids, so fruit juice, alcohol, and ganache is kind of what you might put on a cake if you add enough. A ganache is essentially like what people consider a truffle. It's just the shape of it turned into a ganache, into something round and biteable. So what we're looking for with the chocolate is it has a nice thin coating on the outside. So this one, shall I reveal it, Daniel, and then you can tell us a bit about it? Yeah. So it definitely has alcohol. And I apologize, Olia, I left this one out of your pack. I'll bring it around to you soon. But this is Daniel's recipe that was included in your pack. So for the husk and bean chocolate cream liqueur. So this is his homemade chocolate liqueur, which does have whiskey as its base. So well done, yes. And it is infused with the nibs of the cacao, which is the beans, the pieces of the bean, and the husk as well. So for those of you who aren't aware, and I didn't bring my cocoa beans like I intended to, the outside of a cocoa bean has a very thin papery shell on it, which is kind of like the red skin you get on a peanut. it can use it to make a tea from. It's really high in nutrients, so you can also just put it on your garden, and it's really good for the soil and for your plants. Not good for dogs. Yeah, so Daniel's infused that. So I don't know, would you like to talk about it a bit more, Daniel?
Yeah, of course. So I guess the inspiration behind this one is from Baileys, because I'm a big fan of Baileys. But being a chocolatier and chef, and I like to play with infusions. That's what I do in my day job as well. I infuse botanicals. I've decided to push Baileys to the extreme and infuse some stuff into it, and use my favourite whiskies as well. So that's used 3 different types of whiskey in there, and they all bring a little something to the table. Notes of honey, notes of earth and peat, and Jameson's, which is the Irish whiskey as well. And then, as Jen said, infused it with the cacao nibs and husks to infuse even more of that chocolatey flavour into it as well, so it runs through the whole thing. So really nice, as Jen said, to make yourself for Christmas. Is when I generally have Baileys kind of drinks with a Ganache, which is what we've done here.
What's the ratio of cream to the, like, how do you have to reduce the amount of cream in order to include the liqueur, or is there no cream at all?
No, so there is there's some cream in there, and a tiny amount of sugar syrup as well, because the liqueur itself isn't that sweet when you put it into the Ganache. So there's a small amount of sugar, small amount of cream, but a ratio wise it's 60-40. That's why it's not like a silky cream soft Ganache. It's a little bit firm, so it's a 60-40.
So that's 40% cream. Yeah, cool, interesting. Did we like it? I feel like it's slightly unnerving for people to comment too much when the chocolatier is actually on the call, but the right amount of alcohol for me, Paul says. I agree. Well, that's an excellent question, Grace. How easy is it to source cacao husks? So I actually have some here. This is really old bag. I'll tip them into the chocolate lid. And create a bit of nibs in there as well. Chocolate makers, the people who buy the cocoa beans and convert them into chocolate, have to get rid of this. It's one of the most annoying parts of making chocolate. And so they remove it by smashing them up and then passing it through a machine called a winnower, which uses air, either like as a fan or as a vacuum, to suck away the lighter shell. And because it basically makes it a waste product, which is why they're often kind of giving it away to garden centres. But I would be wary if you're trying to get hold of it, because it's, yeah, you want to make sure you're getting a good source of it. But some of the chocolate makers do sell this as a tea. So they'll usually have that on their website. I know Duffy's in Lincolnshire.
Yeah, so Duffy's I get.
Where do you get yours?
I also go to
Daniel?
Alistair the Chocolate Tree, because I like Peruvian stuff. So yeah, he's generally got the Peruvian husks there.
I'm curious. Does could you know, there's a taste difference between?
I think in this recipe it's pretty consistent. I like to drink it as a tea with mint as well, so then you'd notice the difference across the varieties.
Yeah, I really like drinking it as a tea as well. My PowerPoint is saying not responding. What fun! I will get to it before the end. This happened last month as well. You think I would have learned my lesson? Okay, we'll move on to the next chocolate, which is much easier now because they're generally quite color coordinated. So it's the Green Heart. I was going to tell Daniel in advance which ones we were going to taste, and then I didn't, but I'm suggesting. And just, if I have missed any questions at any point, feel free to ask them again. Sometimes I can't always scroll back up. I put this one near the front because it's subtle, I think, but I didn't choose it first because of that thing that I told you about how your palate warms up and you get better at experiencing flavor as you go on. So it was totally okay to eat all those Easter eggs before you sat down to do a chocolate tasting. I really hope some of you did. Oh, green heart. Apologies, I will get the thing so you can all reference it. Coconut, floral, good guesses. Excellent, Leanne. I'm glad. You'll be tasting brilliantly. Although we discovered that it gets to a point if you've had like 12 to 15 chocolates, then you become basically incapable of tasting anything. A bit like if you go to try on perfume or cologne and you smell a few and then after that you can't smell anything. So very similar. Good to have a break. Smooth and cookie. Made me doubt. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I'd chosen the right one first. Subtle hints of coconut, very creamy. Olia, what do you think of this one?
I like it. It is coconutty, or maybe gorse flower kind of thing. But maybe I'm just thinking of the first ever session that I did with you, where we tried that amazing gorse chocolate, because it is. Somebody mentioned that it's floral, and it does taste both coconutty and floral to me. So yeah, but it's delicious.
This one definitely seems to have more cream in it, so it feels like a silkier Ganache than the first one.
And the chocolate has a really nice snap as well. No, I really like it.
It's fascinating how like just changing the texture of the filling makes such a difference to the experience. LBT, yes, I like that. So you are all correct about the coconut. It's not gorse, although gorse does taste very similar to this kind of subtle coconut. And it has that, the chocolate has that kind of, because it was in a 50% milk as well. It is not just coconut, it's actually Malibu. So I don't know if you taste it again, you might be able to detect the alcohol in this one's much more subtle than the first one, but it is not just Malibu. There is another ingredient in there as well, which is the one that you would probably attribute to the floral notes that some of you are picking up on. It's actually lemongrass. So this one is Malibu and lemongrass. Does that put you off, anyone who've tasted it? I generally tried in the past, but I was, yeah, I think this one's obviously very subtle. So sometimes the purpose of adding ingredients to chocolate is not necessarily so that you can taste them. And I know there's a divide amongst chocolatiers about whether, if it says an ingredient on it, you really want to taste it, which I definitely think there's a lot of just detract from the flavor. And I personally think lemongrass is one of those that it's like can be just a bit like eating a Thai curry, and I don't really want Thai curry in my chocolate. Although there was a silver award winner in the world finals for a few years ago that was a Thai curry chocolate. It was white chocolate with dried shrimps, lemongrass, Thai basil, and jaggery, and it was actually really good. I promise if you tried it, you would probably agree with me. I don't eat shrimps anymore, but it really worked. Saltiness, anyway. Daniel, do you have anything you wanted to add about this chocolate?
No, I think you covered it all, but yeah, I saw some florals popping up, and that's definitely where you get the lemongrass from. And like you say, it's very, very delicate, but it does enhance the chocolate. So the way I infuse it into it is, it's actually coconut milk based as well, so not dairy ganache, it's a coconut milk. So heat your coconut milk, infuse your lemongrass in a warm infusion for about an hour or two, and it's just very delicately, lightly fragranced. If you want a temperature,
a longer period of time at a lower temperature.
Yeah, if you infuse stuff in a cold temperature over 24 or 48 hours, you get a much stronger flavour than you would in a hot infusion. You generally draw out more like bitter notes if you were to do a hot infusion for a longer period of time. Okay, I remember. Pardon? Think about a brewed tea. It would just overbrew and go really dark and bitter and horrible.
Yeah, I remember on the Chelsea chocolate tour, I used to pretty much force everybody to taste Artisan du Chocolat's fresh mint chocolate, because I just loved how to steep the mint leaves in cold cream in the fridge overnight. Because if you heat it, then you get the bitterness out of the get the bitterness instead. out of the mint, which is not so pleasant. Okay, moving on. The next chocolate that we're going to taste is the dome that is still struggling to transfer my PowerPoint. I think that was the one that we just had is the most subtle of all of them. So for those of you who feel like you're defeated already, I think it'll be easier to guess some of the ones coming up. Let me just see if I can. At this point, it's the dome that's kind of got a peachy. Aha! It's on the computer after all. Yay! Lavender, butterscotch, cinnamon, honey, Tonka from the pastry. Really, I should have mentioned that it's often a good idea to smell your chocolate first. I mean, like, I know it's really hard to pause before eating, but there are some notes that are much easier to experience ortho-nasally, so as you breathe through your nose, than they are to experience once you have them in your mouth, because we get a different taste sensation from breathing through our nose versus we're still technically, I guess, breathing through our nasal passages through our mouth as well. But same, so, you know, when you have a cold, or if you were unlucky enough to have COVID and lose your sense of taste, then you can experience salt, sour, sweet, bitter, umami, but you don't get most of what we experience as taste. And what you also might notice is that once you taste a chocolate now, so you can try this if you want, if you have any left, you won't be able to smell it in the same way. You can try it with the next one if you like, but I find it fascinating that you can get all of this fragrance from a chocolate, you put it in your mouth and you start sucking on it, and then, which is what you should do, not chewing, for a piece of chocolate, and then try and smell what's the rest of the piece, and it's like, smells like nothing. Yeah, that is in trouble with sharing. I'm not very good at sharing. If any of you saw my Instagram stories, I ate all 8 biscuits without telling my husband that they existed. He won't be watching this, it's fine. Nobody tell him. Olia, did you want to share your thoughts on it?
Sweet. I love the texture, but I keep trying, but I can't pick out anything specific, to be completely honest with you.
That is totally fine. It's I also I find that some days I'm better at tasting than others. So but yesterday I was like, wow, I was re-eating some of the chocolates that I'd already judged for the World Finals, the International Chocolate Awards, and I was like experiencing them really quite differently to when I put my scores in. I did go back and change some of them. Talia, under the name Morris, her husband, she guessed correctly. So this is Tonka. So we have had Tonka in the chocolates tastings before. For those of you who don't know, it is a spice which kind of has a fragrance and taste a bit like vanilla and cinnamon and honey as well. So some of those guesses that you got are nutmeg. It's related, I think, to nutmeg, which is why they are both hallucinogenic. Didn't know it was going to be such a happy Easter, did you? It's fine. This kind of quantities, it's all good. It's actually illegal in the US without a license because of it being hallucinogenic. But it was one of the first ingredients, or maybe still is, I think, one of the ingredients, secret ingredients in Coca-Cola. Rate it, but it's also used in vanilla essence, so where the cheaper version of vanilla extract to give the vanilla flavor without costing as much as vanilla does. I have finally worked out how to share my screen. I know how to share it. I just finally have my there you go. I think I can minimize. So yeah, you've seen that bit. Why is it being so slow? I'm going to show you what the next chocolate is. So we will And the next one we're going to taste is the blue one, the vibrant blue one. Which I seem unable to share the screens. That was the first chocolate. So I took all this time to take these lovely photographs, and oh, look at the insides. This is the first one, not the one we're tasting now, but look how thin that coating is. Well done. And that was the second one. And you can see the difference in the texture, I think, of this one. That was the lemongrass and Malibu. And this is the one we just had. Oops, it's a third chocolate. And then that's the picture of Tonka bean for those of you who haven't seen it before. So it's kind of, yeah, looks like a seed you'd find out in the forest somewhere. Massive delay between when I turn the page. Okay, so that's the fourth one. I'm going to stop sharing for the moment so that we can see one another. Okay, Olia, what do you think of this one? The thing I would say is it actually takes if you haven't already become conscious of this during the tasting, when you taste something, you don't immediately experience the flavor. Like it actually takes, a few seconds to get to your brain, rise it and sort it, because often what comes up is memories rather than actual names of flavors. So yeah, feel free to share if any of these things that you're tasting remind you of, some time in your life. I'd love it if you would share it in the thing. I mean, obviously you don't have to be too personal, but I think it would be fun to hear if anything.
A prune of like plums, dried fruit. I don't know, there's fruit going on there.
There is. Maybe dark berries, raisin, licorice, treacle.
The chocolate itself is really tasty as well. I really like it. I need to try it again and again to figure out the fruit situation.
When so I tasted them about 2 hours when I actually I tasted them last night when I cut them and took the photos, and then I tasted them I tasted a quarter last night and then another quarter this morning to try and decide which order to go in, because I couldn't taste them all at once last night. And I found it just amazing that when I tried this one and then I tried a few more and went back to it and tried it again, I could pick up on the flavors that I knew were in it, whereas the first time I tried it, I wasn't able to identify the flavors. So if you are struggling to identify the flavors, it doesn't mean you're not capable of being a chocolate judge. It's yeah, it takes a little pastry chefs or experienced kind of people in the foodie world will find it easier, but you kind of need those reference points in your mind to like try lots of different foods, and then it becomes easier. But I would say that I would also be able to tell you that this is kind of fruity. And I think that's because I'm going to reveal the fruit. So you've got dark cherry, treacle, licorice, malt, coffee, medium berries, raisin, prunes. So this is blueberries. And so when you cook blueberries, they become quite like different to how they are when they're fresh. And I feel like they're not as distinct as a cooked fruit. And it is the caramel, that one in a minute. And I think he can probably tell you more about the Tonka because I don't think I gave him a chance to. But Karen and Isabel are correct. There is also licorice in this one. So if you try it again, and you might be able to pick up on it. So it's not like aniseedy licorice. It's just the kind of licorice, all sorts, subtle a bit as well. But that's the flavor that I didn't get on the first tasting. But when I tried it after I'd tried all of the chocolates and I tried them again to determine the order, I was like, oh, there's the licorice, now I can tell. Now, I'm still not sure that I can tell that there's blueberries in there. Daniel, why is that? Do you have any better theory than the one I just proposed?
Blueberries, probably because I've turned it into, because it is a fruit caramel. So it's a caramel ganache. So so I take blueberries, make a puree with them, infuse licorice root into it. That gives it a delicate licorice aniseed flavour. And then turn that into a ganache. There's hardly any sugar in this one. All the sweetness is actually coming from a licorice paste.
Oh wow!
So which I've noticed some people say molasses and treacle. You get that real molassy, dark, sweet, sticky note. So yeah, there's two types of licorice: an infusion and a paste.
Is it the Lacquer's paste?
It is. Yeah, good guess.
There aren't many that make them. So. I'm not sure that I could say that's my experience rather than a lucky guess, but that kind of makes sense to the blueberries because they've been like pureed and made. They're kind of more like the sugar than the than adding flavor on their own, but they give it a great color. And I don't know if you try just the sort of filling on its own without the chocolate on the outside. Excuse me, licking my thumbs. I feel like it's much easier to get the licorice flavor notes. I'm now covered in chocolate. Hopefully there was no one who hated licorice that didn't like that. I know it's always a bit risky to put in these. I
hate licorice so much, but it was so subtle that I enjoyed that. It was really good. It was just like, and now I've tasted it again and I can see that it's there, but you know, I'm on a mission to kind of start loving things that I think that I hate, you know, a little bit like, yeah. A bit of a project here. So this is a great start with licorice. Thank you, Daniel.
I feel like that's yeah, this we don't like because we've had bad versions of them, and that just kind of puts you off trying them again. I feel like that about a lot of things. I never really used to like beetroot. It's still not my favorite, but like I've had really excellent dishes with beetroot in them, or that have been all about the beetroot. Yeah, still not my favorite, but I have really enjoyed some of them. Okay, we haven't had a beetroot chocolate yet. Or did we? No, we had one that had beetroot. Well, I can't remember. I've definitely had one with beetroot in it, but maybe it wasn't with you guys. Okay, so the next chocolate, sorry if I'm going a little bit too slow, you can just nudge me and be like, next. The next one is the Red Heart. So second last, oh, I froze, lovely. So you can kind of see, hopefully from that picture, the blueberry jamness of it. I think I need to get, you know, those of you who've been joining me. There's a few of you who've come every month. So I had a computer that died and then had to borrow my husband's, and that didn't go well because I didn't know how to use his computer. Now, it started again, but I pressed the go button so many times. This is not the chocolate. We're trying the Red Heart. Please do share in the comments what you think of this one. Mary, are you talking about the yellow one being your favorite or the blue one? Coming thick and fast. Blue one was your favorite. Cool. I think it's a fairly strong consensus on this one. Olia?
Yeah, I keep going from, you know, is it tropical or is it peach? But I think it is tropical, isn't it? Yeah, passion fruit must be.
Yeah, so this is a passion fruit caramel. I just love the cut through of this one. Like it's just so luminous. A few passion fruit chocolates lately. Sorry if you're not a fan of passion fruit. I'll try and make sure they're not on the next one. But I just, yeah, I love this. Just passion fruit for me, just like when I taste it, it gives me so many memories. Daniel, do you want to tell us about this one? I love how chewy it is as a texture inside.
Yeah, so again, that's a fruit caramel, so a reduction of the passion fruit puree along with sugars, and then there's white chocolate in it to make it into a ganache as well. So I've chosen white chocolate to keep it clean, whereas if I'd have put milk or dark in, it would have been a completely different chocolate. Instead, I've saved the dark chocolate for the outside, so it's a Dominican Republic 73%, which pairs really nicely with the sharp tanginess of the passion fruit. One of my favorites, one of the first chocolates I ever created, really. So that's why it's included here today.
Yeah, when he said it was this an award winner as well?
Yeah, this one got an award at Ludlow Food Festival in 2012. Best new product.
So Daniel hasn't actually had his chocolate business for 5 years. So I thought it would be quite a fun exclusive
10
to be
years,
able
actually.
to. 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah.
No way.
So I used to, for those of you that don't know, I had a chocolate company where it made bars, filled chocolates like you're tasting today, and a range of drinks as well. And then I was basically working far too many hours, and so I decided to get rid of the chocolate business, or keep the brand and sell some of the recipes on. And then instead, for a 10-year anniversary, I launched my book called Husk and Bean, which I love teaching people about chocolate and food in general, really, and passing on knowledge. So I thought I'd put everything I know into a book. And
I have your book, and I've been hunting around the house this morning. It must be in the same place as Caucasus, Olia's second book, because I can't find it, but I wanted to hold it up and
there you go.
show
I've got one here.
You got one. Excellent.
That's the book.
It's lovely. It's got like lots of different chapters for like basic. Everything you. A few of you have bought it, which is great. I like Anita's comment, heart and passion. Yeah, that's a good point. Passion fruit in a heart. All right, final chocolate should be fairly obvious, but I will share my screen. This is where we find out somebody's eaten the wrong one. Here it is. Just want to show off how pretty it looks as well. And so this is a 6 chocolate, and inside it looks like this. Daniel, there's a question for you. Does Husk and Bean, your book, talk about the fruit puree caramel ganache? So the one we just had for the passion fruit. Oh, you're on mute. So.
And the blueberry, which are both fruit-based ganaches. And like you said, there's all sorts of stuff in the book. I use literally on my table, I've got salt, pepper, and cacao nibs. So I season savoury food with cacao. So there's ranging from chocolates right the way through to drinks and savoury stuff as well. So there's a bit of everything in there.
Oh, amazing. That's great. Olia, what do you think of this one? Any comments?
Yeah, I believe I closed my eyes. The 2 times that I tried it is just, oh my God, it's so delicious. And this is the second thing, like, I'm not the biggest fan of coffee, but this is, if it is, I don't know, it's just delicious. This is my favorite one. I would have quite a few of these, I think. And the chocolate itself has got such lovely acidity in it. It's outstandingly good.
I'm finding it really hard to I just finished that one. I'd be the first one we've had with coffee for the mystery tastings, but it's sometimes there's so many versions of coffee, and sometimes it can be quite overpowering. But I love how like fruity and kind of subtle this coffee is, and also it's not just coffee, it is actually also cascara. So like you had in the very first chocolate at the beginning, we had the husk, like the cocoa liqueur was the chocolate liqueur was a mixture of cocoa nibs and the husk. Cascara is the husk of the coffee bean. So you could, I don't know if you still can, because there was Daniel will tell you more about the laws about it, but a lot of coffee shops were selling it as a drink. So it was like quite a fruity tea and an infusion of the husks, and it's really delicious, really refreshing, and often turned into sodas as well. And so that fruitiness you get from, or I bet it was the coffee. Did it have cascara in it, Daniel, this one?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where a lot, the fruitiness comes from the chocolate and also from the cascara infusion. Yeah.
I was going to say, because I know we discussed that it might not have the cascara, and I thought, oh, is it actually?
No, it has, yeah. Coffee and cascara.
It's I love that fruitiness, and then the fruitiness and the acidity you mentioned from the chocolate. For this one, we chose, I had a chat with Daniel, and we worked with Fire Tree who you probably, if you came along to some of my earlier sessions, Fire Tree are a British bean to bar maker based in Peterborough, and they only do vegan dark chocolates, which, you know, all dark chocolate is vegan, but, or should be, but so they do lots of single origins from countries which grow cocoa in volcanic soil, which is part of the reason for being called Fire Tree. And this is the 75% from Solomon Islands. And so they selected this one when we told them that it would be paired with as well with the Cascara fruity notes, and I think they were right. Yeah, I love this one. Daniel, can you tell us a bit about why Cascara? Like, what was there were people, coffee shops were getting like told to take it off their menu.
Yeah, probably about 2 years ago now. Yeah, so I mean, it's drank all over Asia as a tea, India, Asia, Japan. It's sold throughout America as well. And then basically there's a regulation in the UK, which is called the Novel Foods Regulations. And if something hasn't been consumed in the EU since 2007, it's classified as a novel food unless proven otherwise. So there's an application in progress at the moment for Cascara to allow it back on the shelves. But then there's also another grey area that if you infuse it in water, which I have done in a chocolate, then you are allowed to sell it as a flavouring. So there's a lot of different rules and regulations out there, but without boring you too much, there's a regulation called Novel Foods that doesn't allow the sale of it as the raw material, as the raw Cascara at the moment. But it's, that's interesting.
I wonder if that's for the same reasons that, like, I was telling you all, that you want to be wary of the husk on the cocoa bean, because the process of making, if you haven't been to one of my other tours or the sessions I do for companies and private groups, we talk through that stage, and then some of it's on my Instagram, IGTV. It lies outside. The cocoa beans are outside, and there's lots of flies and other things around. So they do, both coffee and cocoa gets roasted, which generally tends to kill all the bacteria, but there might potentially in some sources of both be moldy beans and things. So if you have the husk, that's pretty much where all the mold is. So it's not a very pleasant topic. We've just been enjoying delicious chocolate, but I find it fascinating. So yeah, you want to, the great chocolate makers, so all the people that we're featuring in the mystery chocolate taste are all fastidious about in their cocoa supply, because if they don't, then you will have chocolate that isn't great, and if people buy your chocolate once and it's not fantastic, then they're not going to come back. So yeah, you won't have any of that in the great chocolate. I'm sorry, Fiona, we got someone not keen on coffee. I was afraid of that. That's the other reason I said to try and leave at least some of the chocolates earlier on, in case you wanted to go back and not finish on the coffee chocolate. Barbara has asked Daniel, in your recipes, it says coconut nectar and date nectar. Can you clarify what they are?
Yeah, it's syrup. Some people call them nectar, some people call them syrups. But yeah, or sugars. You can get coconut sugar as well, coconut sugar. So it's all the same sort of thing. But yeah, date molasses.
Why do you use different ones?
Depends what I'm pairing it with. So like the cocoa, so it just depends what I'm pairing it with. Gives it a different flavour, different texture.
I find a lot of the bean to bar chocolates, when they're made with coconut sugar, you get quite a licoricey note from it. Like, it's quite a strong molassesy, like we were saying before, the molasses that people picked up on when we were tasting the licorice. There's a lot of commonality between the dark sugars and licorice kind of notes. So, which can be lovely, but if all of your range is made with coconut sugar, sometimes it can be, you get that kind of same flavor note across all of your chocolates, regardless of the origin. If you like the flavor note, which I do, it's fine. It's just fascinating to observe that is influencing the flavor of your chocolate. Grace, where is a good place to start if you want to attempt chocolate making at home? The best place to start, I think, is to buy Dom Ramsey's book. Dom is on the call. And so have you got your book handy, Dom? I think mine's in the next room, but it is like a blank chocolate, right? A bean to bar journey, is that what it's called? And it is a really great first sort of Bible really of what all the things that you need to know about chocolate, and it includes lots of the steps of making. And then, sorry, if anyone have another suggestion? Are you talking about chocolate? That's a good point. Are you talking about making chocolate from the bean or making filled chocolates like Daniel has made, Grace? I'll wait for you to come back to it, and I'll clarify. So Dom's book is more about if you want to start becoming a chocolate maker, and we have some chocolate makers on the call. They don't mind me naming them, Karen and Isabel. Would you like to chip in and say how you'd start becoming a chocolate maker? Put you on the spot?
Yeah. I would say start by reading Dom's book and researching a lot on the internet. Taste lots and lots of chocolate. Eat all the chocolate you can find. Eat the bad stuff, eat the good stuff. Figure out what makes it bad, figure out what makes it good. Then start playing around at home and just and experiment. That's
I would say like consider, I don't know if that's bad, but like consider working for somebody. If they're, you know, I'd be upfront about them, telling them you wanted to start doing it for yourself, but someone might be okay with that. You're becoming an apprentice to them. It might mean you have to do it for free if you're going to then go and, you know, start
come in for a day or two and come and see what we do.
Yeah, or just go to events. I mean, obviously at the moment you can't, but things like Canopy Market and the chocolate show. Go and speak to chocolate makers, because generally once you start asking us questions, you can't shut us up. So yeah, come and speak to people. That always helps.
Grace has said it depends which is more achievable. I would say making chocolates, like filled chocolates and truffles, is infinitely more achievable and affordable, because to start making chocolates you need a thermometer and probably a silpat mat and some molds, which I would definitely invest in better molds, the sort of hard Perspex ones. But yeah, if you want to start making actual, you'll need a grinder, and they start about £200 for a little one. And you probably, if you want to make it professionally, you're going to want to upgrade from using a hairdryer to do that winnowing process that I mentioned earlier to buying an actual winnower, which will cost you at least another couple of £100. So yeah, I'd start by making chocolate, making filled truffles and pralines if you're interested in both. But do go along to like see if you can get sort of stages or just days as an apprentice in any of the, when we're allowed to, obviously. But yeah, Karen and Isabel run Dormouse Chocolates in Manchester. So thanks for chipping in there.
Okay.
So I have some questions for Olia, if any, but yeah, I was curious. So for those of you who don't know, Olia was born in the Ukraine and at 12 moved to Cyprus, and then after that moved to the UK, where she's lived for at least the past decade. And I was wondering, because I've not spent any time in, I've not even been to the Ukraine or to Cyprus. And so I was wondering about what the kind of differences are between those countries. And if you're like, you feel like having grown up in those places, it gives you a different chocolate taste to like your British
Right.
friends.
Yeah, I lived in Italy as well briefly for a year because I studied Italian. So yeah, so there's actually 4 countries to consider. So, you know, before I came on here, you invited me to come on, and I thought, oh my God, I'll need to straight away kind of confess that I am not, you know, always my whole life I've considered myself not a chocolate person.
And she told me this right at the beginning when we first met, and I was like, oh, but I really like her. I like chocolate.
Really digging in my memory and my brain, and of course, you know, especially after doing your course or, you know, your tastings, I've realized that, you know, it's not that I don't like chocolate. It's probably where it all started, which of course, you know, I was born in 1984 in the Soviet Ukraine, and was, you know, there was an ice cream choice between something that was called plambir, which was in this kind of like a waffle, soggy waffle thing, and it was actually really quite delicious. I mean, I don't know what they put in. I've actually, it was tasty. And then there was the chocolate version, which was called Eskimo, and it was like a really thin kind of chocolate, almost like a cylinder. And inside you had the white, you know, creamy, whatever, vanilla imitation flavor. And then you had chocolate on the outside, I think. And, you know, we're talking about the finish and how it melts in your mouth. I mean, it was really disgusting. I think that it's the Soviet chocolates that have really put me off for life, which I don't know, you know, but then you've got my dad who and he loves chocolate. And then you've got my older son who's 9, who's also like the first time he tried chocolate, and I'm sure that I gave him something that wasn't particularly good quality or whatever, you know, and he loves chocolate. You know, he's one of the another reason why I started doing your tastings, because I thought, well, he'll educate himself and enjoy it. I'll educate myself, and maybe I'll grow to enjoy it. And I really did grow to enjoy it, you know. But yeah, Soviet chocolate wasn't really good, I think, and I started digging a bit into its history, and you know, Lviv in Western Ukraine has some connections with, you know, Austro-Hungarian Empire, and actually it's got a really big kind of chocolate tradition. And it had these 2 chocolate factories, were quite big and interesting. But then the Soviets have kind of, you know, turned it into used all of the kind of standardized views. Do you know anything about the chocolate kind of in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union? That they used really bad quality kind of maybe West African chocolate, and it was really over roasted, from what I understand, to kind of, it had to you know, because there was no flavor, so they just kind of like roasted it really harshly.
I'd say that was probably true of a lot of chocolate in the 80s, like with the exception of like what if you grew up in Britain or sort of Australia or like what's one of the other Commonwealth countries and had Cadbury, which was you know, decent compared to the cheap version. Like Cadbury, when Cadbury was posh, like Cadbury was the fancy chocolate. I mean, says a bit about like my family, perhaps more than necessarily my generation. But the it's like the cheap, like the compound chocolate, the stuff my mum bought for cooking, unless it was a special occasion, was so disgusting. It was just oily, because cocoa butter is the most expensive part of the cocoa bean, and if you get rid of that and replace it with the vegetable fats, you don't get the same texture or the same flavor, importantly. And exactly what you said, for a long time most cocoa was really heavily roasted because they were adding so much sugar and they didn't, heavily roasting would disguise kind of bad, poor quality cocoa. Yeah, so there was a lot, I think, in the 80s of very, very bad chocolate, but I can certainly see why under like control it would be just that's all you're getting.
I've got someone saying Eskimo is lovely. Strongly disagree with Olia, sorry, which is fine, you know, and I'm sure my dad also enjoyed all of the bad Soviet chocolate. But anyway, so, you know, from then on, chocolate was not kind of a thing that I seeked out. So yeah, I thought hard about kind of Cyprus and Italy. And I can't say that anything came up, probably because I just decided that I wasn't a chocolate person. So I didn't really pay attention to what was going on there. But when I came, like, you know, university, and that was my first experience of chocolate eating in the gate, probably Easter, you know, maybe I was at my friend's house in near Loughborough, I believe. And yeah, and the whole chocolate obsession during Easter was very new to me.
Wow.
Very interesting. We don't, yeah, maybe now they do more of that in Ukraine, but we didn't really, there was, you know, it's not about chocolate really at all in any way. And I you know, always wondered why.
Tell things. Let's because it was, you know, Easter is about eggs and rebirth, and And so like, let's make chocolate, shake like eggs out of chocolate. Yeah, because then we can sell them.
Yeah. Great. So in Soviet Ukraine, no chocolate, just leavened enriched breads and stuff. So yeah, so that's advising to have all the chocolate during Easter, but you know, it's fun.
So from all the tastings that you've joined, like, was there any one that you remember that just kind of made you go, wow, like this is why people care about chocolate?
Yeah, I mean the very first one, and I think there was, I can't remember what the name was. It was a dark chocolate and it was quite plain. It wasn't, but tasting the chocolate, you could just, my brain was just going ping, 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 ping. There were so many different notes, you know, fruity notes are really interesting to me, especially in something like chocolate, because you're expecting kind of of the chocolate itself. It wasn't filled or anything, and that completely kind of blew my mind. And yeah, and made me think, oh, maybe I am a chocolate person. Maybe I just needed to wait to try something as good as this. It was infused somehow into the chocolate. That also, yeah, really impressive. I loved it.
So that was the Chocolata one. So if anyone's interested in it, the company, I'll type it in, it's called Chocolata. They, so for those of you who aren't aware, when I started doing these chocolate tastings last June, I was cutting up bars and resealing them. So we were tasting bars every month until October, when we switched to doing filled chocolates. And so some of them were just pure single origin dark or milk, and then some of them were infused. So we had Dormous's toasted white chocolate in the final set of the bars that in September, I guess that was. But it's been, yeah, I'm not sure if it might have been Fire Tree, or it could have been Tozier's Belize chocolate potentially, or Chocolate Trees. But I love, like, that was the first time that, I mean, I was already a chocolate obsessive, but the first time I tried a single origin Madagascan chocolate a really kind of a premium for the private tastings that I do with bars still. And I love watching people in offices, just kind of, the one I did on Thursday, I think it was, this man was just like, is anyone else like not like, am I the only one experiencing like this revelation? It was so fun to watch how excited he was by like getting the fruity notes from the chocolate. And it was incidentally the exact same chocolate that I'd had my revelation of single origin chocolate, craft chocolate with as well. So oh, Olia, do you have a favorite Italian chocolate?
Favorite Italian chocolate?
You're gonna have to start exploring them now, aren't you?
Yes, yeah. I mean, the only thing that comes into my head is probably Baci or something like that, you know, which we would probably had as students back in the 15 years ago or something. But no, I have to explore.
For some, I find like a lot of the Italian chocolate is kind of similar to the Italian coffee, and it's like often a very high roast, and like the same way, like a lot of the red wine, like the bitter seems to be a more like sought after factor for Italian palates than British ones. We're very much hooked on the sugar over here.
Yeah. And sorry, I completely forgot. You know, I said that I explained about the Soviet chocolate, and then of course when the Soviet Union you know, ceased to exist in the early 90s, I guess of all of the chocolate bars, you know, your Lions and your Milky Ways. And my dad, I remember, he used to have this old Mercedes, and he used to drive to Germany. It all just kind of came back to me. So he used to drive to Germany and fill his car with all of these Kinder chocolate bars, and he'd bring them back to Ukraine, and you know, he could sell them in the shop or something. yeah, it was crazy. And I think my favorite one was, somebody says, haha, my dad did the
My mum
same.
did as well.
I didn't know
I'm
that was a
laughing,
thing.
like, from when we came back to the UK, my mum would fill, well, it was mostly wine gums rather than chocolate. I would fill my case with like Cadbury's chocolate because it was so much better here than Australia. But like her case was like so heavy. Wine gums are really heavy, but she's obsessed. Her teeth are not good. Don't
We used to have a summer kitchen where, you know, you cook during the summer, etc. But during winter, there'd be boxes and boxes of this, you know, of Kinder kind of little bars. And we'd smash through, like, you know, half a box. I don't know how I'm still alive. Like, that was, oh my God, so much chocolate. So maybe I did like some chocolate, you know, the novelty foreign chocolate came in, you know, and I remember also Lion bars. I think that was kind of like my favorite. Coming back from school, your parents would give you like some pocket money, and there would be really like small kiosks or little babushkas, you know, old women kind of sitting on the side of the road and selling sunflower seeds, like fried sunflower seeds and Lion bars.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, not completely that I never enjoyed chocolate when I was little.
I love that combination, like fried sunflower, fried or dried sunflower seeds.
Fried, yeah.
Fried sunflower seeds and Lion bars. It's like where old meat.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Are you going to be doing any of your group tour?
Everything with the virus and stuff, but hoping that by September, if things change, we do plan to take a group of people to Western Ukraine. Yeah. Where we kind of forage and go see shepherds that make cheese, and I teach loads of dumpling making, and we pick mushrooms, etc. Like it's really...
is it suitable for vegetarians as well? I guess it has to be because of Joe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, super vegetarian friendly. You know, everyone has this kind of I don't know, there's a stereotype that Eastern European cuisine is extremely meaty, and it can be, of course, but so many amazing vegetables and fruit, and September is going to be really, you know, a cornucopia of vegetables and fruit and berries at the markets, sorrel, herbs, you know, like mountains of herbs. Like, it's going to be amazing. Yeah, definitely vegetarian friendly.
I think it was actually when coming to, he used to speak at the baking club that I used to go to, and we'd occasionally get lovely cookbook guests like yourself. And I hadn't really considered, like, this probably says more about my poor geography than anything else, but I hadn't considered how far south, like the south of Ukraine is, and how it's much more Mediterranean. I kind of always imagined it as like a cold and like more barren place than the way you described, like the tomatoes and all of the just like vineyards and things.
Yeah, no, I mean, Ukraine is huge as well, and you know, up north and in the west, it's almost like north of Italy, you know, where you get your mushrooms and your earthy flavors and kind of like slightly richer dishes. And then where I'm from, you know, we're kind of a stone thrown away from Turkey, really. I mean, it's an hour away by plane from Odessa, and there are loads of, you know, Turkish and kind of possibly Mediterranean influences there as well. So I love the description that Elizabeth Loire once used, describing Romania island, but also loads of kind of almost Italian and Turkish influences, loads of herb paste, etc. You know, it's very diverse, and definitely in terms of like the choice of fruit and veg, very much like Mediterranean diet. You know, massive farms, and you know, it's not just big, it's also extremely delicious. The soil is so rich, you know, we call it the black soil, chernozem. You put something in and it just grows. And obviously the sun as well, as we all think of Ukraine as being extremely cold, but from May to October in the south, it's blazing hot. It's, you know, it's incredible. And and loads of herbs as well. You go to my mom's kind of like vegetable patch, and there's this masses of dill and purple basil and lemon balm and you name it. You know, it's really gorgeous. Oh, you making myself really homesick. Actually, I haven't been almost a year.
I'm sorry. It's I can't. Yeah, I'm homesick for traveling and for my other home in Australia as well. My passport's expired. I really need to get that sorted just in case we're allowed to go anywhere this year. Hopefully so. I should have said does anyone have questions about the chocolate? I would love to know what your favorite is. If you want to share how fascinating is it almost every chocolate gets chosen by a different person. So like just how varied our tastes are. Daniel pointed out Amade is an excellent Italian chocolate. It was the first female run factory in the world, and they're really fantastic chocolate. So William Curley, who was in December's tasting, I think, with one of his chocolates, not him obviously, but he made one of the chocolates. He only uses Amade chocolate, and I think a few other British makers use some Amade, but of his chocolate. Nice, it works really well together. If you've got any left, you could put them in your mouth at the same time, but it might be a bit of a risk. Risky. Oh yeah, that's what was the milk chocolate, Daniel?
Dominican Republic, it was the milk chocolate, 37%.
Okay, chocolate starts at 30% cocoa content, and then the remainder is a mixture of milk and sugar. And you get milk chocolates kind of up to 50, 55, and then they generally start getting called dark milk chocolates, because dark chocolate needs a minimum of 60% cocoa content to be considered good. And so if you have a percentage of cocoa that's similar to a dark chocolate, but you have a mixture of milk and sugar instead of just sugar, it's the dark milk. Chocolate cream liqueur and the blueberry. Oh, I love that you all liked different ones. Does anyone have any more questions, either for Daniel or for Olia? I'd love to know. Well, I'm just going to wait and see if anybody comes up with one. If you need to go, that's totally fine. But feel free to hang around if Olia's got a few more minutes for me to ask her another question. I'm enjoying chatting to her, and my family aren't back yet. So I was going to ask, so what are kind of traditional, not just at Easter, but like what would be a sweet treat in Ukraine, if not kind of lion bars?
So Easter time, we would make enriched kind of breads, almost like a panettone type thing called Pascha. We call it Pascha in the south of Ukraine. And my mom would use these leftover tins from, tin tomatoes or something, but the really like jumbo ones, and some smaller ones as well. And she'd make about 15 of these breads. I mean, there was like masses of dough, this massive yeasted dough just bubbling away. And really interesting traditions, actually. My auntie used to make a dough, and she used to ferment mashed potato with flour. It's like make a sourdough with mashed potato and use that in the dough. And then you take a little bit of egg white and you whisk raw egg white with sugar and pour it over these breads. And also, and little sprinkles and stuff. And then and another bread that we'd make would be filled with this delicious poppy seed paste. And I highly recommend, if you guys have got either, there's a recipe for it. But basically you take loads of poppy seeds and you boil them in milk to soften them. And then you kind of bash the poppy seeds with sugar and nuts, like toasted walnuts, but I use pecans here in the UK, and a bit of vanilla, and then you blitz it all together. Well, you can either use a pestle and mortar or blitz it in a blender. And with this paste, you basically put inside a bread, like you roll it, and then there you go. This is very, very an Easter time treat. And it's absolutely delicious.
Psychoactive What was that the right word? Psychoactive.
I don't know, but you know, I wouldn't be surprised.
I sound obsessed. Cocoa does, coffee does, you know, like it's a lot of these like nuts and seeds.
I'm not sure, but we eat a lot. We eat a lot of poppy seeds.
Maybe it explains why you have such a beautiful smile and a great energy. It's all
Yeah, it's all the poppy seeds that I've been inhaling.
With the nutmeg and the Tonka.
Yeah, interesting.
The chocolate, you probably get sick before you actually kind of. I do think chocolate happens before you get sick. That kind of uplifting feel.
Elation, yeah.
That sounds. Yeah. I need to cook more out of your book. I need to cook more out of anyone's books, to be honest. But the recipes in both Mamushka and I Can't Speak for Summer Kitchen as well. I've seen lots of positive praise online, but they are just so creative and interesting and different. And then obviously I've never been to the Ukraine, so that's probably why they're all surprising to me. But they just is as well about the way that flavors can be paired in ideas that I hadn't considered before. And there's a couple of more questions that I'm going to come to in a second, but I realized that some of you need to leave, and I have not told you that I have confirmed this special guest for May, and I'm very excited to Nicola Lamb, sorry, I totally know that, and I just went, I only slept 4 hours last night. Chocolate is getting me through. Yeah, so Nicola Lamb, for those of you who don't know, is the co-founder of Puff the Bakery with Ravneet Gill, who was a guest in October. And she has a weekly newsletter that's called Kitchen Projects, which is amazing. It's a free newsletter. She has a paid subscriber version as well, but the free newsletter, she does massive deep dives into all of that. She's all about the spreadsheets of history and the science and the technicality. And so, yeah, each week she does a deep dive into like something specific, like hot cross buns or bourbon biscuits. And so, bourbon biscuits? Anyway, so she's going to be the guest in May. So it's in an evening. It was going to move to a Sunday, but it'd be Wednesday at 7:30, Wednesday the 12th. And so hopefully you'll join us. The code, past months, but the code that's on your tasting sheet is already live on the website. So you get £5 off your next tasting, or the tours when they eventually start again. So Daniel was, there was a question for Daniel about whether, oh, did you already answer it?
Yeah, but I can say again, it's okay. There was a question about, what was the first one? There was one
question about infusions, what to use apart from chocolate.
Yeah, so anything really. A lot of drinks, I mean, that's what I do in my day job. I go into drinks, vodkas, soft drinks, water, smoothies, milkshakes, juices, you name it, it can go into it. But I like to forage as well, so I pick something in season like meadowsweet or gorse or elderflower, and then make a syrup, and then use that syrup to flavour creams or panna cottas or all kinds of desserts.
Oh, I've got I've mentioned, I don't know how many of you follow me on Instagram, I'm talking like you all do, but Olia, and I learned from Olia that you can pickle magnolia leaves, petals, and I don't know about the leaves, but the petals, and then I saw online that you can make like a sweet syrup and make cookies out of them. And so the petals on my tree in the garden are just about to drop, so I'm going to go and like harvest today or tomorrow. I don't want to, they're beautiful to look at, so I don't want to get rid of them too early, but equally, like, I don't want them once they're on the ground as much because we have a lot of cats in the garden. But I tasted one the other day and it was really interesting. I think they go in well in a salad. You can eat them raw as well, right? Anyone know?
You can, but not too many.
Okay. Yeah. I thought perhaps one might be, okay, good to know. I won't eat any more raw. Have I missed, I didn't realize, Anna, you were from the Ukraine as well. Have I missed any other questions?
There was a question on cold infusions, I think, whether you start from cold or...
Yeah,
you didn't leave to go
cold. So I'll put that in there too. But just as a general rule of thumb, if you want a quick infusion, do something hot for around 2 hours. So when I say hot, sort of 80 degrees-ish, 80 to 100. If you want a clean flavour but a strong flavour, don't start it hot. Cold water or cold juice, you can infuse in any kind of liquid for 24 to 48 hours, and that will give you a clean flavour but super strong. Whereas if you do a hot infusion and leave it for 24, 48 hours, you'll get really bitter, astringent notes.
And I just wanted quickly to add that it's interesting about cold infusions. So I've been taught how to soak mushrooms the Japanese way by Yuki Gomi. For example, if you want to make a soup, normally I'd just pour hot water over dried mushrooms, but Yuki did it with a cold infusion. So she poured water, and it was such an interesting flavor. It was very different. And I do that with green tea as well. I do a cold infusion on green tea and drink that. Apparently it's very good for you.
Yeah, I read that as well, and I hadn't done it in a while, but I don't drink as much tea at the moment. But I really enjoyed when I have glass jars left over from passata and would make the tea infusion a year or so ago, but I was reminded online today or yesterday is with mushrooms, if you boil them before you fry them, they will taste better, which is crazy given that, like, when I was growing up, I was told, like, you don't even wash, don't submerge your mushrooms in water, you have to wipe them with a damp cloth. I don't know if anyone else was told that, but actually if you like rinse your mushrooms, get rid of all, you know, the dirt, and then boil them in water and then fry them, they will be like much more meatier and juicier, and yeah, nothing to do with chocolate at all, but hopefully that will increase your eating pleasure, you know, for the non-sweet things. So any other questions? Does anyone have anything they'd like to add or to share? Daniel?
No, I think if anyone's got any questions, always happy to talk chocolate. So either on the website or Instagram, just pop me a message.
And I should actually say, I'm not sure if she's on the call or not, but because I mentioned Daniel doesn't make chocolates for, like, as a business anymore. He sold all of his at some point, and so he actually called on one of his students who does have a chocolate business to make all of the chocolates for you, and her name is Charlotte and her business is called Carlotta Chocolate. So they're all made to Daniel's recipes, but yeah, I just thought I'd give her a shout out as well. But I'm glad. Oh, I'm very happy to hear that, Ella. I hope that more of you will come back next month, and I'm planning to run them every month, and there'll be new chocolates and new guests, and hopefully some of the previous guests like Olia will come back, and like Olia's been to so many of them, which is just lovely. It's so nice to see some of you that I see most months: Joanna, Matt, April, Ismay, Jess, Ian. Sorry if I'm not saying your name, I'm not quite getting around, but thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much, Olia, for taking the time out of your family Sunday to join us, and hopefully I'll see you. And thank you, Daniel, for sharing your recipes with us, and yeah, do make both Daniel's cream liqueur and Olia's cake and tag them and me, and I'll share it as well.
Delicious. So, thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks. Glad you enjoyed it.
Enjoy the rest of your Easter weekend, everyone.